data. So say that I was coming up with an intelligence pill. By taking this pill, you would increase your intelligence by 10 points. So if I give it to everyone in my class, I've just made a mistake because I don't have a control group. I have nothing to compare the results to. So I would split the class in half. Half the class I would give the intelligent pill to, and the other half of the class I would give them a placebo. So this way now I have something to compare my results to. Hopefully you understand that example pertaining to experimental group and control group. Okay. Okay, now moving on to blind and double-blind studies. Blind studies, the subject does not know what's being tested. So say that I create a cool pill, and whoever takes this cool pill begins to use cool words like fushizhal, okay? What would be wrong with me saying, here, take this pill because I want to measure how cool you are? Well, by announcing what the research is about, the subject is now conscious of how cool they are, where before they were not conscious of how cool they are, so we have natural interaction that we could measure. But now, since I've called it out, that's going to skew my data. So this is where you'd want to use a blind study. I would tell the person, here, take this vitamin, then I'm going to put you in a social situation where we're going to talk about sports or something. So this way, the subject does not know what's being measured. They don't know that their level of coolness is being measured and that the pill they took was a cool pill. A double blind is when neither the subject nor the researcher knows what's being tested. Sometimes a researcher will not accidentally, but just unfortunately skew the data themselves because they have put a lot of work into this, so they would have trouble being objective. So you want the researcher to be blind as well. So say that I'm the professor who came up with this cool pill. I would get 3 graduate students together to actually run the test, and I would tell the graduate students, ignore my phone. I will. Doesn't look familiar, right? So I would tell these graduate students, here, take these vitamins, give them to individuals, and after you give them to the individuals, I need you to give them this advanced social skills test. So notice the researcher does not know what's being researched either. The professor does, but not the researchers themselves, and neither do the subject. So that's what a double blind is. All right. Talk about that later. Okay, let's talk about research concerns. This is basically information that you want to pay attention to in creating your own research. The first thing is a target population. Target population is the group that you want to apply or generalize your research to. So if I was studying the dressing habits of the typical community college student, hey, look, I work at EFSC, I will sample all my students. Well, that wouldn't, and then I come out and publish a paper saying the typical community college student likes to wear shorts in December. Hopefully you can see what the problem with that is. I had the wrong target population. I said the average community college student, but my sample was only EFC students. Remember, the target population is a group you want to apply your research to. So I had the wrong target population. So if I wanted to change my target population to the average BCC or average EFC student, I'd be golden. So this brings us to a representative sample. A representative sample is a small, randomly selected part of a larger population that accurately reflects the characteristics of the whole target population. So basically, I wouldn't need to sample every EFC student here. That would be impractical, probably impossible. So instead, I will choose a representative sample. a smaller sample, say 500 students, as opposed to our, 15,000. Okay, but it needs to be randomly selected. Randomly selected means that each member has an equal chance of getting picked. So let's say, hey, I'm a psychology student, a psychology professor. I'll just simply sample my students. That's not random. That would only incorporate psychology students. That could skew the data. So to make it random, I might go to the cafeteria and sample students there. I might go to the bookstore and sample students there, because there, that's a place where any student could just walk into, so everyone has an equal chance of getting picked. Don't worry about stratified sampling. Let's move on to, there's two types of bias: selection bias and volunteer bias. Selection bias is the unintended skewing of data due to the selection process used. So selection bias is when, in trying to select who's going to be my subjects, I accidentally skew all my data. Let me give you a very good example. The presidential, and this is a true story, the presidential race of 1936, Alf Landon versus Franklin Delano Roosevelt. This occurred in the middle of the Great Depression. The Literary Digest, a famous newspaper back then, randomly, they got a phone book from every state and randomly called numbers from those phone books. So everything was random and looked representative. Great. Based on their research, they said that Alf Landon was going to win by a landslide. Well, raise your hand if you remember President Alf Landon. Never happened. In fact, it turned out to be one of the worst presidential defeats ever. FDR captured the vast majority of the votes. Well, what happened? Well, it was the Great Depression. Alf Landon was not in favor of taxes. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was in favor of taxes. He was going to tax the rich and use that money to create jobs. So, in the Great Depression, who had phones? The rich. Who are the rich going to vote for? Alf Landon. So you see where this is selection bias. The way they selected their subject pool skewed their data. Last but not least, volunteer bias. Volunteers may not be random nor representative. So the idea of getting a subject is you want someone in the middle range, the average. So let me say that I'm doing research on gun control, and I send out these postcards, and there's like 10 questions on them. The only thing you have to do is just check boxes. Really simple, self-addressed stamped. You just put it back in the mailbox. Boom, you're done. How many of you would do that? Well, I'll tell you right now, only those of you who have very strong feelings for gun control or against gun control would take your time to volunteer to fill out that postcard. And so when you have people who feel very strongly against gun control and you have people who feel very strongly for gun control, you're missing the middle section. And that's what you're trying to get. So when you go with volunteers, you get the extremes, not the average. Volunteer bias. All right, folks, that is it.